If I hear one more word about my money, there won't be any polite conversations left. I didn't shout. I just stared straight at my mother, Sarah, while my stepfather, Marcus, froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. He had just made a joke about accessing my military savings for family security, and he expected me to laugh. I will personally explain to him exactly where he stands. I continued, my voice steady, and why my money is not his. Marcus's smile vanished instantly. My mother shrank into her chair, unable to look me in the eye. This wasn't a teenage tantrum. It was a soldier's warning. And judging by the fear in their eyes, they knew I meant it. Before I tell you exactly what Marcus did, the moment I turned my back, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. 3 days later, I was back on base, surrounded by the familiar serial hum of military life. I didn't have a bio to offer people. I was 29, a combat medic, and I lived my life according to protocols. Assess, stabilize, evacuate. Panic was a luxury I couldn't afford in the field, and I certainly wasn't going to indulge in it when dealing with my finances. I sat on the edge of my bunk, laptop open, running my weekly audit. Most people check their social media first thing in the morning. I checked my credit report. It was a habit born from distrust, a survival mechanism honed over years of living in a house where privacy was a suggestion, not a right. Everything looked normal until I scrolled to the bottom of the recent inquiries list. There was a single line item that stopped my breath. A hard money lender, the kind that charged predatory interest rates and didn't ask too many questions, had run a credit check on me 48 hours ago. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the computer across the room. I picked up my phone and dialed my mother. "Sarah," I said when she answered, skipping the pleasantries. "Why is a high-risk lender running my credit?" "Batia," she stammered, her voice thick with that specific kind of nervous exhaustion she always wore around Marcus. "It's nothing, just Marcus was looking into some investment options. He probably just clicked a wrong button online. You know how he is with computers." She was lying. I could hear it in the pitch of her voice, the way she rushed the explanation. Marcus wasn't bad with computers. He was calculating, and he wasn't looking into options. You don't accidentally apply for a hard money loan. I hung up before she could spiral into more excuses. I didn't need her confession. I already had the motive. The memory hit me then, sharp and bitter. I was 16, sitting at the kitchen island trying to do homework while Marcus paid bills. He hadn't been shouting. He had been calm, almost clinical as he tapped the calculator. "Electricity's up," he had said, not looking at me. "Water is up. Food costs are through the roof." He had looked at me then, his eyes sweeping over me like I was an appliance that was drawing too much power. "Do you have any idea how expensive it is to keep another human being alive, Batia? The space you take up, the heat you use, the noise." He had a ledger. I saw it once. A literal notebook where he tracked the cost of my existence. Every meal, every school trip fee, every pair of shoes my mother bought me. He had kept a running tally of my childhood, viewing every dollar spent on me not as parenting, but as a loan he expected to recall. That was the key. Marcus didn't think he was stealing $320,000 from me. In his twisted, entitled math, he believed he was simply collecting on a debt. He thought I owed him for the inconvenience of my survival. I looked back at the screen at the inquiry from the lender. This wasn't just greed. It was a billing statement. He was coming to collect, and he was using my mother as the delivery system. I closed the laptop. The anger in my chest was cold, heavy, and useful. I wasn't going to call him. I wasn't going to argue about how much water I used in high school. I was going to find out exactly how deep he had dug this hole, and then I was going to bury him in it. I didn't call the lender. I didn't waste time on hold listening to elevator music and explanations. I went straight to their web portal. The site was slick, aggressive, the kind of interface designed to get you to sign your life away in 3 clicks or less. I typed in my own email address. The system recognized it immediately, prompting me for a password I had never created. Marcus had been thorough, but he had also been arrogant. He had used my real email address to make the application look legitimate, assuming I would never check, or perhaps assuming he could delete the notifications before I saw them. But he had made one critical error. He couldn't change the recovery method without my phone. I clicked, "Forgot password." 3 seconds later, my phone buzzed. I entered the code, reset the login, and the digital doors swung open. I was in. The dashboard was a horrifying testament to his greed. There was in bold green letters, "Loan approved. Amount $50,000. Status pending disbursement." I clicked on the Documents tab. I didn't look at the interest rate. I already knew it would be criminal. I was looking for something else. In every digital transaction, there is a ghost in the machine, a metadata log that tracks exactly where and when a signature was applied. It's called an audit trail, and most amateurs don't even know it exists. I opened the certificate of completion. It was a detailed log of every interaction with the document. I scanned down to the signature line. "Signed by Batya," it claimed. But right next to the timestamp was the smoking gun, the IP address. I didn't need to run a trace. I recognized the number string immediately. It was the same static IP address I had set up for my mother 3 years ago to help her manage her smart home devices. The timestamp read October 14th, 2:15 p.m. On October 14th, I was 5,000 miles away, in a field hospital, patching up a 19-year-old corporal who had taken shrapnel to the leg. I wasn't signing loan documents in my mother's kitchen. I was scrubbing blood out from under my fingernails. Marcus hadn't just forged a signature. He had left a digital fingerprint that placed him at the scene of the crime. I didn't feel the sting of betrayal anymore. That part of me had burned out the moment I saw the credit inquiry. Now, I just felt the cold, hard satisfaction of a hunter who has found the blood trail. I downloaded the PDF. I took screenshots of the dashboard. I exported the IP logs, then I changed the password again, locking Marcus out of the account he had created in my name. He wouldn't know why he couldn't get back in. He would think it was a glitch. I created a new folder on my desktop. I didn't name it Family or Marcus. I named it Evidence. I dragged the files into the folder. The click of the mouse sounded loud in the quiet barracks. It sounded like the safety coming off a weapon. 2 days later, my phone lit up with Marcus's name. I let it ring once, twice, just long enough to steel myself, then answered. "Batya, honey," he said, his voice dripping with a sweetness that made my teeth ache. "I'm so glad I caught you. Listen, your mother and I have some exciting news. We found the perfect place. A little lake house, just like we always talked about." I didn't say anything. I just listened to the hum of the connection, letting him fill the silence. "It's a steal," he continued, rushing a little now. "But the sellers are moving fast. We need to close this week. There's just one tiny hiccup. The bank needs a secondary signature on some release forms. Just a formality, really. Something about clearing up that old student loan of yours so it doesn't affect our debt-to-income ratio." It was a lie so clumsy it was almost insulting. There was no student loan. I had paid for my education with service. And there was no such thing as a release form that required a closing ceremony. A release form? I repeated, keeping my voice flat. Exactly, he said, confident now that I hadn't hung up. We found a way to take that accidental loan inquiry off your record, but you need to come to the closing to sign a quitclaim release. It just tells the bank you have no interest in the property, so they stop bothering you. He thought he was brilliant. He was using the very credit inquiry he had generated as the bait. He was telling me he was fixing a problem he had created, while actually luring me into signing the final mortgage deed that would attach the fraudulent $50,000 down payment to a 30-year mortgage. If I signed that deed, I wasn't releasing anything. I was accepting liability. When is the closing? I asked. Thursday at 2, he said. At the title company downtown. You can make it, can't you? For your mom. She's so stressed about this falling through. I looked at the folder on my desk. The evidence was all there. I could have emailed it to him right then. I could have called the police, but that would have been messy. It would have been a domestic dispute. He would have claimed it was a misunderstanding, that he had my verbal permission, that I was just a confused, angry stepdaughter. I needed him to commit. I needed him to sit in a room with federal oversight and lie on the record. I'll be there, I said. Wonderful, he exclaimed. Oh, Batia, you're a lifesaver. We'll see you Thursday. He hung up, thinking he had just secured his retirement home. He didn't know he had just secured his indictment. I sat there for a moment, listening to the silence of the barracks. My mother hadn't said a word during the call. She was probably sitting right next to him, nodding, looking at her shoes. She knew. She had to know. And she was letting him lead me to the slaughter because it was easier than fighting him. That realization didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. It just calcified the last soft part of me. I opened my laptop and pulled up the flight schedules. I wasn't going home to visit. I wasn't going home to argue. I was deploying. The conference room at the title company smelled like stale coffee and lemon polish. It was a glass-walled fishbowl designed to make life-altering debt feel like a corporate achievement. There was a bowl of mints in the center of the mahogany table. Marcus was eating them one after another, the crunching sound loud in the quiet room. He looked triumphant. He was wearing a navy blazer I had never seen before, likely bought for the occasion. And he was chatting animatedly with the loan officer, a man named Mr. Henderson, who looked tired but professional. We've been looking for a place on the water for years, Marcus was saying, leaning forward. Ideally, we wanted to be in by the holidays. It's just so important for the family to have a gathering place. My mother, Sarah, sat next to him. She looked gray. She was sweating through her silk blouse, staring fixedly at a potted fern in the corner as if it held the secrets of the universe. She knew deep down, past the denial and the fear of her husband, she knew this was wrong. But she was sitting there anyway. Her silence was her signature. I sat on the opposite side of the table, my hands folded in my lap. I was wearing my dress uniform. I hadn't told them I was coming from the airport. I just showed up. The uniform made Mr. Henderson sit up straighter. It made Marcus nervous, though. He tried to hide it with a tight smile. So glad you could make it, Batia, he said, his voice a little too high. I know how busy you are. I wouldn't miss it, I said. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat and tapped the stack of documents in front of him. All right, let's get started. It's a standard closing, but since there are multiple parties involved in the deed and the quitclaim, we need to go in order. He slid a thick document toward Marcus. This is the Uniform Residential Loan Application, Form 1003. It finalizes the mortgage details. I just need you to verify the information one last time, particularly the declarations on page 4. This was it, the kill zone. I watched Marcus pick up the pen. His hand didn't even shake. He was so convinced of his own narrative, so certain that I was just a resource to be harvested that he didn't perceive the danger. Section M, Mr. Henderson recited, bored and efficient. Down payment. You are certifying that the $50,000 currently in escrow is from your personal savings and is not borrowed funds. Is that correct? The room seemed to tilt. Time slowed down, stretching like taffy. I looked at the pen hovering over the paper. In that split second, I felt a surge of old instinct, the urge to jump in to save my mother from the fallout, to stop him before he ruined everything. It would have been so easy to say stop. But if I stopped him now, it was just a family dispute. It was a stepdaughter arguing with a stepfather. It was drama. He would cry. He would claim he was confused. He would gaslight my mother into believing I was being difficult. I needed the ink to dry. I needed him to cross the line from greedy relative to federal criminal. I needed the lie to be codified, notarized, and filed with the government. That was the discipline. That was the difference between a skirmish and a war. You don't fire when the enemy is approaching. You fire when they are in the open. Yes, Marcus said, his voice clear. That is correct. He checked the box marked no next to the question, asking if any part of the down payment was borrowed. Then he signed his name. The scratch of the pen on the paper sounded like a lock clicking shut. He passed the document to my mother. She hesitated, her hand trembling slightly, but Marcus nudged her knee under the table. She signed. Mr. Henderson smiled, collecting the papers. Excellent. Now, Patia, we just need your signature on the quitclaim deed and the gift letter to clear the title. He slid the next stack toward me. Marcus turned to me, his eyes gleaming with victory. He thought he had won. He thought the hard part was over. I didn't pick up the pen. Instead, I reached into my bag. The sound of the heavy file hitting the mahogany table was a dull thud. But in that silent room, it sounded like a gavel coming down. I didn't look at Marcus. I looked directly at Mr. Henderson. I can't sign this, I said clearly, making sure the security camera caught it. That is not my signature on the down payment check, and I never applied for this bridge loan. Marcus laughed nervously and tried to wave it off, but I cut him short. I slid the file to Mr. Henderson. This is a notarized affidavit of identity theft filed with the FTC this morning. Beneath it is the lender's own forensic audit trail. Henderson's smile vanished as he opened the file. The audit shows the electronic signature originated from an IP address registered to Sarah and Marcus on October 14th at 2:15 p.m. I turned to my mother. She looked sick. On that day, I was deployed in a combat zone. My orders and flight records are included. Marcus exploded, accusing me of lying, but Henderson stopped him. He flipped through the documents, saw the IP logs, the affidavit, and the federal form Marcus had just signed, perjuring himself. This isn't a family dispute, Henderson said flatly. He looked at me, understanding dawning. If you fund this mortgage, I added, knowing the down payment is the product of identity theft and wire fraud, you'll become an accessory under federal law. Henderson closed the file, pulled the papers away from Marcus, and stood. The closing is terminated. This transaction is frozen. Marcus screamed. Sarah said nothing. Henderson picked up the phone. Security to conference room B and notify the branch manager. Marcus bolted. I left calmly, but as the elevator doors closed, Marcus rushed in and attacked me, clawing for the file. I restrained him using a non-lethal hold directly under the security camera. This is a boundary, I told him quietly. You don't cross it anymore. When the elevator opened, security was waiting. I released him immediately. He attacked me. I detained him for my safety. They took him away. Outside, my phone rang. I didn't answer. I blocked his number, Sarah's, and in every line they had. not in anger, out of self-preservation. Because a suspicious activity report had been filed, it was no longer personal. It was federal. Marcus was indicted weeks later for wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, attempted bank fraud, and assault. The house deal collapsed. My mother's savings were liquidated to cover his debts. She lost everything because she protected a predator. I sent her one email, a copy of the permanent restraining order. Tonight I sit in my own apartment. Modest. My bank balance is boring. Safe. Undeniably mine. Closure isn't a feeling. It's a locked door, a silent phone, and I paid for that silence in full. If you've ever had to protect yourself from the people who should have protected you, leave a heart. And if you want to see how the court case ended, subscribe. And Bebe, have a good day.